When you join ASUG, you'll never face an SAP challenge alone again. We connect our members to exclusive educational opportunities and a community of like-minded peers, so you can get the most value from your SAP investment. Get smart fast and learn from the best. Stay on the leading edge of SAP practices and get access to the latest research, insights, and unbiased editorial and interviews from industry experts and your peers. Expand your network. ASUG makes up the biggest, most diverse, and most engaged SAP user group in the world. Any question or challenge you have, there's someone who's seen it before. Connect with a network of 130,000 plus SAP savvy professionals to solve complex business challenges, work smarter, and expand your SAP skills. Get set to lead. Improve your SAP expertise by collaborating with peers to solve business challenges and find innovative solutions. With 38 regional chapters, you and your teams can connect and meet with other SAP professionals and take advantage of dozens of speaking and leadership opportunities throughout the year where you can share your ideas. Become a leader in the ASUG community by leading a local chapter, joining our executive exchange, and participating in one of our 13 and growing ASUG Alliance groups, or make connections and learn at ASUG events. Keep learning, connecting, and growing with ASUG.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today and welcome to Low Code in SAP, how to modernize apps and move to SAP S4HANA with the help of low code. My name is Lauren Nelson and I'm an associate producer here at ASUG. Today's webcast will be recorded. You'll receive a post-event email with a link to the on-demand recording along with a link to a survey. Please take a moment to fill out the 2-question survey after the webcast, or you can fill it out by clicking on the orange icon on your screen below. It will also pop up when the webcast is finished. If you have any questions, please enter them in the Q&A box. We would like to have a conversation with you and answer any questions you have. If we don't get to all the questions today, we will answer them offline following the webcast. Now, I'll hand off the webcast to our speaker, Willie Fox. Willie, take it away.
Hey, thanks. That's great. And welcome, everybody. Really excited to have you all here. My name is Willie Fox. I'm with NoviaQ. We'll get through some more introductions. But just to refresh why we're here, we are here to talk about low code and SAP and that intersection and how these technologies are being used to modernize your applications, differentiate your business, and actually then set you up for those of you that are still in the process of moving to S4HANA. I think the things to take away here, we're going to spend a little time unpacking and talking about specifically low-code platforms, the market, their capability, really spend a bunch of time, most of our time, really digging into use cases and examples of how this is happening and how it's working in the field. And again, tie that into your journey to S4HANA. Really excited to be joined by a couple other members of our team and one of our clients to go through this, and want to have an open dialogue with you all. Please utilize the Q&A function to answer, put in questions, and we'll see if we're able to answer them and address them as we go through the process. So from a formal introduction standpoint, again, I'm Willie Fox. I run our North American business for NoviaQ. I've been in the low-code technology industry almost my entire career with several different companies. All during that time, I've built, I've delivered, I've worked with clients across multiple industries to really, and it's been a really great opportunity to see the low-code market evolve and grow, and excited to be working with clients now to help them really embody and consume on low-code and use it to differentiate their business as they go through that process. I'm going to introduce off to Roy. You want to introduce yourself for the team?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Roy van der Kerkhoff. I started my career as an SAP ABAP developer. 1997, been that basically my entire career, ABAP team lead, then more into solution enterprise architecture. Until about 12 years ago, I found a low-code platform, OutSystems, that I thought was a better choice to use to build upon SAP as a low-code platform. And one of the founders of NoviaQ and its current director.
Cool. And really happy to have Ajit Azaraya join us from Syngenta. Ajit, maybe want to introduce yourself and give us a quick review of who is Syngenta.
Sure. So Ajit Azaraya, I'm based out of Basel in Switzerland, where Syngenta is headquartered. And maybe I'll spend a few minutes after this and introduce you to Syngenta. But I've spent about most of my 30 years of my career in and around ERP systems. I started with finance, and the last 8 years mostly around supply chain and production and supply and everything connected therewith. We are right now in the midst of a S/4HANA upgrade. So, clean core and, low code. It's been very much part of our agenda. So be glad to talk about that.
Wonderful. Great. Do you want to take a few minutes and just introduce Syngenta and walk through?
Sure. So Syngenta's mission, really, if you haven't heard about Syngenta, is to meet the global challenge of feeding a growing population. And you look back, and I fact-checked this actually, you look back 70 years, the world's population was about 2.6 billion. We are now 8 billion. And the amount of land we have to feed this population has, and the resources we have has remained largely the same. So that's, that we have, that challenge has been met so far, but looking ahead, there's going to be 2 billion more people in the next 10 years, in the next 30 years, sorry. And that's going to need 50% more food. So really, that's our mission to feed the world, if you will. We've basically two large segments. In crop protection, Syngenta is number 1, number 3 in seeds, and number 1 in crop nutrition and farmer services in China. And there's a little blurb to your left. We are headquartered in Basel. About 60,000 employees spread across each and every country. Every country needs to eat, and therefore we are everywhere. 4 business units. Syngenta Crop Protection, that's basically my business unit. Adama, which is our off-patent sector or business unit, if you will. Seeds, largely out of the US. And as I said, number 3, and Syngenta Group China, which incorporates both seeds and crop protection. And if you look on top, they are, we realize that, chemicals and is not very popular. And, going forward, we need to find new ways to protect the crops. So digital farming, biotech are huge growing areas, and also a key focus for us. Regenerative agriculture, so being sustainable, is those are our key pillars. And just a little bit on the company: 59,000 employees, 123 nationalities, 100 countries across the globe. Number 1 ag employer, and number 6 overall in biotech innovation. So yeah, I deal with a lot of PhDs. So in Syngenta, you almost everyone you bump into is a PhD. So that's a little bit about Syngenta.
Great, thanks. And really, and having worked with you all for a while, it's an impressive company, highly diverse, and I'm really looking forward to spending some more time unpacking that a bit more. But just also, maybe Roy, you could just give everyone a quick introduction to NoviOQ.
Sure. So NoviOQ, I think we're really a partner in technology. We originate from the SAP space, that we still have a lot of knowledge, and that people like me with 25 years experience that have been in the ecosystem. We are also an OutSystems partner that we use to extend SAP with low-code technology. And we also provide column store technologies, data science tools like Exasol and Spink, which we're not going to talk about today, but to bring speed to the application we build, because the vast amount of information in SAP is pretty hard to query in an app if you want to have a response time that's beneath a second. We're globally really a knowledge base for SAP and OutSystems integration. So we speak at conferences, we do these webinars, we answer questions across the globe, anybody who has a question on this. And in the 7 years of our existence, we become quite an experienced partner with at Heineken, Robert Bosch, Ericsson, Syngenta, Fresenius. So it's agriculture, it's pharmaceuticals, it's food and beverages, but also manufacturing. It's quite diverse. And in the meantime, we've established offices in the Netherlands, in Germany, in Portugal, in the US, and the Americas. And we can also deliver from Asia. So we can cover all time zones now, which we find quite important for our customers. That was it, Willie.
Great. Thanks, Roy. Appreciate it. Keep those introductions brief. Now we can get into some of the meat of the content. I can spend a couple of minutes to just talk about, why low code, and it's a segment in a space that I'm pretty passionate about, having spent most of my career there. But I think most people, whether you're in business and IT, will understand that there's a lot of our budget and our time cycles that goes into maintenance and support, and not necessarily large value-add innovative capabilities. Gartner issued a study that said nearly more than 70% of IT spend is on keeping the lights on and keeping things moving. The challenge is that 70% of business doesn't stay flat and static. The world's changing fast. There's great opportunities for business innovation, but how do you get that into technology? And the promise of low-code technologies has always been to make it faster, easier to build and maintain software to enable clients, customers, or enterprises to have their differentiated advantage. So when we look at, specifically in the low code, if you haven't heard about it, it's a significant market space. It has a lot of talk about it, but in a recent Gartner study, when they published their quadrant for the sector, they think within a couple of years, at least 3/4 of all new applications would be built using some kind of low-code technologies. I think that's been talked about for a while, and we've seen massive uptake and growth of the market. What's really neat about being in this space for so long, which is what I'm really excited to talk about this today with you all, is where it applies. For a long period of time, low-code technologies were used to build simple workflow, simple task management, some UX and UI components. It has gone beyond that. It is much more powerful technology. It has much more powerful capabilities, and is now being applied to all of these different areas. And this again, right from Gartner's study around full line of business applications with really any business case to align to use case. Really a significant amount of time focused on using this technology to migrate and modernize and augment existing core and legacy applications. We're going to talk a lot about that today, where you get to reuse and extend existing capabilities with something special and unique that your business needs. And then turning the technology internally. So how do I support my employees, my internal processes? Low-code technologies have taken off and are delivering a lot of value there. So really, if you look across these three dimensions, the platforms and technologies, and specifically OutSystems, is providing a capability that can deliver a broad set of use cases across the enterprise. And from our perspective, I think, as Roy mentioned, we did a study of the market. We've looked at the technologies. OutSystems has been a consistent leader in this market space. They've been working for 20 years specifically and only on this problem, and have an extremely powerful capability set that delivers high agility, high capability, and enterprise strength to be able to solve both simple problems, but more importantly, the really complex problems that really drive your business. And if you're not familiar with OutSystems, I'd encourage you to take a look at them, contact us on them. But there is a really powerful technology footprint there to leverage. And then really where we see it from a technology architecture standpoint is fitting into 5 major spaces. So whether you're in there and refactoring or extending that core ERP, closing gaps in between the different layers of the different applications that you have in your ecosystem, extending and closing gaps around those SaaS platforms, which deliver a huge amount of value, Salesforce, Workday, Dynamics, where there's specific capabilities, but they need to be specialized. Low-code technologies are optimized for that. The emergence of significant and huge new AI capabilities, ML, or intelligent automation functions they need an application from which to be leveraged. They need an application to actually bring them to life. Low-code platforms have become a really great destination and tool to bring those services to value. And then at the end of the day, where there are needs for custom applications to let your regional business differentiate in their region, or your tailored production line process have the technology it needs to solve its problems and leverage all those core capabilities, these are where we're seeing low-code platforms really bring into life. And we're looking forward to talking about some of these in more specific as we go forward. And so kind of with that, actually was hoping that, as far as moving from general low code specifically into the SAP world, I think, Roy, maybe you can take a few minutes and dive into that specific layer of the architecture and use cases.
Yeah, and I think I started programming ABAP in 1997, I think. And ABAP is a fairly simple language to learn in itself. If you've done it, it's just some commands, a loop, an if, that kind of thing. But what makes it really hard is understanding the data model, the 120,000 SAP tables to choose your data from, or the 70,000 plus functions or methods to execute a certain task, like create sales order or read customer. But during my career, I had to learn all these languages as well. Just for PDF or like form printing, there's free here already, like SAP Script, Smart Forms, Adobe Interactive. But when it comes to web and mobile development, it gets worse. There's WebDimpro for Java, well, obsolete. WebDimpro for ABAP. There's ITS. There's Business Server Pages, Floor Plan Manager. It goes on. And what makes it worse is that the clients I worked for, they used all these techniques in the end. So we had huge support teams with huge skill sets that had to support all these applications built on all these technologies. And one of the reasons we went to low-code and have found OutSystems is that we can do all these techniques with one technique. We can do all that with one skill set in OutSystems. The only thing we need to figure out is how to connect to SAP and how to connect your HANA system. But that's a one-off. Once you've done that, you can reuse it in any project. And you really can. We've done this at clients. We're doing it at Syngenta, for instance, at Heineken, at large corporations, and it works. So this is really, for us, one of the driving factors in a shrinking skill set market, where you have to really struggle to get talent. This is a way that you can get people up and running and your projects moving again. That's one of the reasons we did this. And going back more to an architectural high level thing, if you talk about the clients we see that want to move to S/4HANA, they don't want to fall into the same trap they did in the past when they built everything in ABAP and SAP. When I worked at Heineken, I was responsible for 500 million lines of custom code across the global systems. And that made a move to S/4HANA simply impossible because it had to be a greenfield. All that code had to go somehow. So many customers adopt a clean core strategy now. They want a clean S/4HANA system that is manageable, that is maintainable, that you can upgrade in a short period of time. So that's what it's all about. And Gartner, again, visualizes pretty nicely in its bi-model approach. So you have your Mode 1, which is still your S/4HANA system. That's hard to change. It should function like a diesel that just crunches your number consistently 24/7. But still would be as hard to change as today. It might take 9 months to get something to production. But next to that, there's a Mode 2, and that's your agile layer with any low-code platform. But not just OutSystems, it can be any low-code platform you adopt. It can also be UiPath, Power Apps, whatever you have in your other technology stack. But this is fast. This should be continuous delivery, hourly, weekly, depending on your strategy, releases to production. And that fills your innovative gaps. And that makes you win in the end in the marketplace. That's the idea of having this bi-model approach. And when you look at moving to S/4HANA, how you can use bi-model to de-risk that move, we've done a couple of projects, and I've done one where we did everything in SAP, configuration extensions, and that was a large client with a large footprint and a huge team of, I think, about 190 external consultants. And it was the 4-year initial plan, but in the end, that project slipped for 2 years. If you look at, where's the button? doing a bimodal approach, you get your extensions out of your migration or your greenfields as for HANA. So you only have the configuration, which will save you a year in time. And next to that, you have your bimodal, where you have maybe OutSystems, Power Apps, UiPath, any other platform you use to extend that has a much smaller team. But as you can also see, it can start building even before you finish your preparation and planning, because it's independent of your S/4HANA migration if you do this right. It also means you can go live already on your existing NetWeaver system with the apps you built before you do your big bang go live with S/4HANA. And if you then look at the risk, a 2-year extension of a project is not uncommon, but having such a huge team of 190 external consultants will be a huge extra cost. While if you do the configuration only in S/4HANA, the risk is much limited because it's much better plannable. While you get live with your bimodal approach, and it keeps on running and delivering new value to your system and more innovation earlier and consistently. So that's how we see this as a bimodal, how it will really get a lot of risk out of your organization. And then you have a clean core strategy. So what is clean core? Well, most people see it as a clean S/4HANA system where you move all your code of S/4HANA, and they have quite some governance around it. People buy SaaS platforms surrounding it, so there's Salesforce, ServiceNow. Maybe you build a local MES system in your local platform. What we see now is that people start building code in their SaaS solutions. So suddenly you see it's bloating here, and that moves the problem away for S/4HANA, but you get the same problem in Salesforce and ServiceNow. That's going to be hard to upgrade, hard to maintain, and we see that as a risk as well. So the clean core strategy would be anything you buy should be clean. Anything you need extra, you build in your local platform surrounding it. That would get that risk out again for future migrations and future upgrades and reduce your maintainability costs. Back to you, Willie.
Mute button. Great, thanks, Roy. Appreciate that. And that was I know we kind of raced through some pretty big concepts, but the idea was to set some foundational elements here for us to then maybe now drive home in some actual conversations. So, maybe kind of turning the light over to Ajit, could you spend a few minutes and just maybe share a little bit about a little more under the covers on, the environment at Syngenta, specifically even, how SAP is looking across that diverse organization, all those operating units and needs. And then maybe we could feed into a conversation around looking at the IT initiatives and strategies that are kind of stressing that environment. And ultimately, I think we'll end up on where does low code step in and fill in. But I would love to hear a little more on just kind of setting the groundwork on current state.
Sure. What I didn't mention in introducing Syngenta was, if you look up Wikipedia, you'll find it was a spin-off from Ciba Geigy and Novartis, I think. So my boss has told me that Syngenta was one of the first customers of SAP. And apparently we have some customizations that date over 20 years old, which have migrated from system to system to system to system. So I have not been with Syngenta that long, but we obviously do have a very complex environment that we are in the process of rationalizing and moving to S/4HANA. So what drives the complexity within our ecosystem is, of course, we function in a heavily regulated world. We've got a lot of compliance needs, number one, which extend on each and every country. So there are regulations that have to be honored across the globe, and they are many times you're not going to get that out of the box. You're going to have to provision for that. The other thing is, if you think about our industry, you have to deliver on time. Nature doesn't wait for you, and if your ship gets stuck in the Suez Canal or something like that, the product has to reach the farmer in time, and there's that window when he needs it. You can't. There's a planting season, and there's a season when you apply even crop protection products. So logistics and the whole planning process is extremely key. And as you can imagine, over the years, I think Roy mentioned 500 million. I think we are close. Maybe maybe a little bit more than that, if you counted up all our lines of code. So we do have a very complex system, and we a couple of years back, when we first started with OutSystems, and our eyes opened really with the first project, and maybe I'll tell you that story a little bit down the line. But it opened our eyes. We were skeptical at first. It's like, okay, so what's this thing? And and we didn't really have the expertise within the organization, but we stepped out a little bit, and we took a little bit of a risk to our first few projects, and then we discovered the potential of what it could do, and then we were hooked. So now we pretty much, by default, almost the organization turns to, how can we solve this quick with low code? And then, maybe a little bit down the line also, really, we can talk about, the way you can iterate through and the things you can do if you do adopt a low-code solution, which really those approaches are not open to you with your traditional way of approaching things. So I don't know, Willie, if I answered your question, or if I missed out on something which you asked.
Sorry. Be key to maybe is there it's just sitting in context because it's large organization. I'm sure there's I'm very familiar. There's hundreds of initiatives. But is there big themes that that Syngenta is looking to solve for over the next several couple of years that this is setting, that these that this platform and this approach is starting to align against, that we should just keep in mind as we go through these use cases?
Oh, absolutely. So I'd say clean core is definitely one. So without a doubt, guilty until proven. Otherwise, the bar to get a customization into SAP is very, very high. And not only that, also building around the ecosystem. We built, like you said, Willie, it's not just simple workflow tools, things like fleet management systems, label and artwork management systems and we built in OutSystems actually, interfacing into SAP, interfacing into the master data systems, etc. So one of the themes. So the themes, we are a very data product focused company. So our orientation is turning towards microservices, data products, and in both those areas, OutSystems has been a key lever. So we started with a microservices strategy and started putting in these microservices, things like the ability to trace a batch, the ability to pop up information based on a barcode that someone scanned somewhere in the market for a rebate. And we built a whole library of those things that you can put together and create some pretty powerful outcomes. So data products, microservices, clean core, I'd point to the three large themes that you will find across Syngenta.
Got it. That's great to hear. I think interesting to hear about the journey too, where it started on, let's start with some microservices, smaller, more consumable elements, and then move forward. Roy, from your end, do you have some comments on what you've seen in other clients as well, as far as that, how to approach, how to kind of think about that first use case or that first set of examples?
Yeah, the use cases vary wildly. So at some customers, it's all about purchasing. They have a global buying system that they need to distribute contracts globally, and an SAP SRM that's really very hard to do. So we built basically a thing on top of that using a low-code platform that makes it intuitive to work, that integrates with SAP, creates the contracts. And in the end, such a thing starts as a small, basically one-off. We want to make contracts easily. We want to be able to change them easily. But when they see the power of it, it extends into a complete purchasing power sort of SaaS solution that does the full global contract management across the globe, including tracking goods receipts, invoicing, cross-charging. So it starts as an MVP that does one task, but then it grows into a very powerful strategic tool for that business. And other companies use it as a front end to make life easy for employees or for resellers or for their customers. And other customers use it as a sort of a backend tool, as a switchboard where they can easily configure dynamic connections, do master data, extend, do workflows. There's a wild variety of use cases.
Yeah. Well, I was curious, and either Ajit or Roy, you could address when you talk about some of these use cases, and I think it'd be good to unpack a few more, but even just on this purchasing one, Roy mentioned, there's where how would describe that handoff between where SAP sits and its capabilities, which are your core transaction. You said the diesel engine that's running, and then the global application that sits on top of it. How those two, because I think what you're not saying is that, hey, we no longer use SAP for the back end, it still is there in place, but we're now filling the gap on top. Could you kind of get a little detail on just kind of where those lines are drawn and how people should think about that?
Yeah, to start off with, we're a huge fan of SAP. I think that's why we started the company. So we work with SAP. We know SAP by heart. It's just that the user interface sometimes can be improved, we think. And Fiori is not the answer to a lot of these things. But we really feel that extending SAP should be you should have the best technology and a great UI UX user experience. Another example, at one client, they plan production lines, and you have planned orders in SAP, but planning it by production line is not that easy, especially if people have planned certain materials on certain lines, for instance. So we build an app with OutSystems that reads all planned orders. They can change it, they can do some forecasting, they can work with some figures, see what it does to stock levels, and then it simply writes back planned orders into the SAP system with the new values. Using standard SAP technology, but we don't change anything in SAP. We use standard building blocks, and anything extra, the innovation or the better way of working, is done on an external platform. So that's the way we like to see SAP. SAP should be used at what it's really good at: ERP technology, finance, logistics, and anything visual, I think, should be in a local platform, and maybe, something like that.
Yeah. Maybe Ajit, you want to comment on that a little bit about either using one of these use cases as an example of where you've, kept that core clean and leveraged that core SAP, and then found the need for that business application on top of it. Where do you see that line being drawn, and kind of what are the things that trigger in your mind as far as that's a good scenario for a low code platform?
Yeah, I can think of several. So, the way we like to think about it is, the core transaction has to go through SAP. I mean, we don't compromise on that, but also keep the integrity within the SAP system. So, we have the need to extend our product master data system, because we have, lots of additional attributes, hierarchies that are custom, workflow sitting on top of it. And what we did was we kept the base pretty much undiluted SAP, but built this enrichment platform using OutSystems actually on top of it. So the way you access the data is through OutSystems, but at the back end it's all SAP. It's not we didn't compromise any of that. And I think we did pretty much the same with the artwork and labeling system. We had, for us to build something, extend the ERP to do that would have been really complex, because you can imagine labels are very important for the stuff you stick on these pesticides and weedicides. They have to be compliant, and they're very specific, and they're critical to production, and they're critical that the production lines get them on time, and they're associated with the right materials, and they're everything else. And for that too, we extended the whole core ERP platform using OutSystems. So it is, the philosophy is, let SAP do what it does best, which is run the transaction through. Don't mess with that. And when you do have these complex requirements to extend the system, think about the low-code option, and think about how you can use. We've also moved to event-based, an event mesh that hooks into OutSystems and our low-code platform. So also leverage things like that. So when in our track and trace application, that's also been extended using low-code, but the core data all sits in SAP.
So track and trace, could you spend a minute just kind of summarize that for folks that may not be aware?
Yeah. So this is the ability to track down to a batch level, the product that we sell. And we've got lots of use cases around that. Give you one is fraud detection. So we do have a lot of counterfeiting in our industry, and the ability to accept that scan. That scan is, of course, can trace back to your batch and everything else, which is in the ERP, but then also run analytics on top of it to determine whether this is a potential counterfeit, and flag it up, right? So you can extend the use cases around that simple track and trace and that barcode scan, using low-code systems like OutSystems.
Right.
And we've done that.
Got it. Yeah, I've seen that. I've had several conversations with clients about that kind of scenario. They're certainly linking into the scanners, given their need for compact UX UI needs that are tailored to that device, and working with people. That's we've seen a lot of value there. Roy, it brings up a little bit. We've talked a couple about use cases, and we think we can come back to some more, but also just specifically on SAP. But the reality is, and as you as well, there's a lot of other platforms and systems in the mix. I think I'm thinking of another scenario where you have Salesforce or SAP and others. You have some comments on either use case or scenario where how do we bridge the gap between multiple systems, not just a single front end or a single application in front of SAP? And I think, I don't know if Roy, if you had a comment on, I think we did another project on processing, logistics, and orders, combining those three architectures.
Yeah, definitely. So I think what makes having an independent local platform, one of the reasons is you can have actual cross-system workflows, so to speak. So you start a process in Salesforce, and once it reaches stage 4 or whatever, you already ping it, you send an event to the local platform, and people start already compiling data or already do some work. And once it's closed one, then the local platform gets another event from Salesforce. And then that platform can automatically create sales contracts, projects, time together, for instance. And then not only do you have a full visibility, and it's work that's easily automated, but you also have an order trail that's cross-system. So if you go to the execution and you go to cutting purchase orders for that same project, then you can still tie that into that same local platform. And so instead of just starting a Salesforce and you leave it, you now have an end-to-end visibility of large projects. And we did that at a large telecom client, and they sell projects like do 5G at the west coast of the US, which is a 7 billion contract or something. So everybody in the company has to be involved. They want to have resource planning, risk mitigation. There's dozens of documents that need to be attached before anybody will make a decision on how they accept it and how they execute it. And that can all be managed then in a single local platform.
Yeah, I think I would concur. I've seen that, and we've seen that at multiple clients where it's not just a single front end, but having a technology and approach that applies this to more than just SAP. I know this audience and this approach there's more than fertile ground around SAP, but there's a lot of other systems as well as just standalone business applications that hit a specific business need. I mean, Gene, I think you mentioned earlier, My Fleet. That's a kind of just a a business problem that you found someday and were confident enough to go after, maybe you could spend a couple minutes and just kind of, walk us through that one.
Sorry, you caught. Could you?
Sorry, I was just going to say maybe you could. We were just talking about connecting with multiple systems. There are also use cases for custodian.
Yes.
They're just freestanding and delivering value. So maybe you could just.
Yeah, I was gonna point it back to Roy. Actually, Roy's done something like that for us, where we had this customer-facing application in Salesforce connecting back into SAP. And I think it was to do with the logistics, Roy. If you can, Roy's been, he can speak to it better than I can actually. But we do have an example of that.
Yeah,
that's actually a great example. Yeah. Shall I say something about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, yeah.
So like Syngenta sells seeds, and they sell a lot of seeds in the Midwest. And as Ajit said, it's nature calls. All these farmers come to the warehouse for seeds at the same time because they have to sow at the same time. And that was quite a chaos. And we built an app for that they get Salesforce sales data. That's all done. Then it becomes sales orders in SAP. And we have an app where that resellers has all the customers, all the farmers, all the sales orders that are cut against them, and can do actual deliveries based on these sales orders. And these seeds are quite specific. They have certain sizes. They have a lot of characteristics that each farmer needs to get the best batch suited for their land or their sowing machines. And he can now has full visibility of that, including packaging materials. Returns can be done. It includes printing bills of ladings. All these things are now done in OutSystems and at I think a spectacular low time. So the first release was in 6 weeks. And then we iterated upon that release, adding more value as they saw the value. And now it's, I think, actually used in the Midwest to attract new resellers. They use it to sell Syngenta basically as a great place to be a reseller of because of the technology they get working with Syngenta.
Yeah. Be curious. We talked about the speed and the challenge, and it is. I've seen it at other clients. There's one thing about utilizing low code to deliver these value, but it really, when you see how fast it can happen and how much, not just on day one, but the continuous evolution, the continuous ability to put more and more of your energy into innovation and new versus maintaining. How is that? Maybe could you share a comment, like, has that changed some of the thinking or some of your approach and or your team's approaches on how they look at problems and either, becoming more willing to go try new things and do them quickly versus the old? And is that something that's, how do you see that evolving over time?
Yeah, that's definitely that's changed based on just the ability to iterate and experiment. And that's maybe when you asked about themes, that's another theme that we do have running across our organization is, fail fast, experiment, and see what's possible. And these low-code systems and OutSystems, which we use quite extensively, does open up that possibility a lot. We don't assemble a huge team, go collect a lot of requirements and then have a big kickoff and then start a huge project. When you want something, you have a smaller team, get a few people together, experiment and see what's possible. And you've learned and you've kind of already progressed a little bit, and then you iteratively build out. And that approach is facilitated by these by low-code systems. So that has definitely impacted the way we approach things.
Has it changed the way that kind of the classic business IT relationship is formed, and is it and how even everyone is thinking about this type of change?
Yeah, we would. I'll be honest. We probably would like to see a lot more quote unquote citizen developers, but we've not. It's not something that's caught on that everyone's coding in OutSystems. And initially, we did think that would be. We were a little hopeful that would be the case, but no. But we do have, the kind of person within the organization who's technically inclined, a lot of those kind of people who are now in the space and getting quite proficient with OutSystems. So I wouldn't go so far as to say it's for everybody, but.
Oh yeah, I was kind of actually, that's great commentary, but also the impact on the people who are, business folks who are thinking about new evolution, new product. Are they seeing faster development, faster solutions that's giving them the capability to think more aggressively about innovation, or has that propagated through to the business?
Yeah, it has, because like I said, one of our first use cases was this system that was reaching end of life. It was based on Flash, if you recollect, that went out of support. And all of a sudden we were faced with this system that we had to replace, and we didn't have the time to go out and pick something off the shelf and integrate it. We had to build it. We had to build it really quick, and we used OutSystems, and that really opened. And the project to deploy that particular system had taken 3 years in north of 6 million, and I think we spent a fraction. We spent about 6 months and a fraction of the amount to replace that functionality. So in that particular project really opened up a lot of the executives' eyes into what was possible here. So sometimes you're your own worst enemy. You've built expectations now, and how fast can you do this? How fast can you deliver? But definitely in terms of time to market, time to value, it's a game changer. You're just not constrained by so much around you and so much legacy that you can move so much quicker.
Fantastic. What are you, just a little bit maybe on that one as we think about it, is what are the things that you found, that you've learned over the last couple of years, that are like, what were the key ingredients for success? I've heard from you, you've talked about starting small, proving value, but there's from executive support, there's technology, there's team, there's culture. What are the things that you guys that you found worked well to ensure that this basically a relatively new approach would deliver this kind of success? And then we can also talk about some of the pitfalls to make sure we for folks who want to start this journey, how do you get started the right way?
Okay, I'm going to give you guys a plug. Get the right partner. I think that I'll be honest. Well, just having Roy, you get the credibility within the organization that you can deliver. Build on small successes, and and talk about them. It did take time, and we did have a fair amount of skeptics. A large corporation, what are we doing again? So our labeling is now going to be done off this this low code thing. I mean, how many companies have done this before? Really? Is it the first time you're going to do this? So it took a little bit to build that credibility, to put these initial successes, and build the momentum. But I would definitely say experiment, small successes, and work with a partner who, because we have noticed there's a wide spectrum. You can low code doesn't come without any discipline. You gotta you can do it in a really slipshod way too. And I think there's certain design principles that you need to adhere to, which we discovered also. That you need to work within certain limitations. You need to know, you need to be knowledgeable about, how do you build the libraries, etc. I think that's important.
Thanks. We have got a few minutes left and a few questions teed up, but maybe I'll before we dive into the Q&A, and if anyone has further questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But maybe you could before we dive into that, maybe you could just the end cap, which is where do you see this going? Like what's the future hold for this bimodal architecture, this adoption of speed and agility with SAP, and what do the next couple of years look like for Syngenta and low code and SAP?
I think it's just going to gain momentum. I mean, there's no way. It's the writing's on the wall. This is the way we are going. I think it's also going to be, we are going to be going more and more to the cloud. Right now we are still on-prem. And that's going to also drive a lot of innovation around it. There's things that you're just not going to be able to do. We're going to have to keep a clean core. I don't think there's going to be much optionality around that. And also the focus on data and data products. You have to, if you have a lot of complexity in your core, you're not going to be able to leverage the data. And that's going to become a key differentiator. So clean core is here to stay. It's only going to get, the emphasis is going to get more and more on it. The ability to innovate quick and to build solutions and scale them quickly, sitting on your core also is here to stay. And therefore, I think low code is going to have a permanent place, I believe, in our ecosystem, and it's just going to grow.
Got it. Great. Well, we do have a couple questions queued up here, a couple specifically around a little technology. So, Roy or Ajit, you want to share about, what are the key technical channels utilized for OutSystems to connect with SAP? We're looking at RFCs, API, web services. So I think there are a couple questions around just how do you make this connection work? And either one want to spend a couple minutes and just kind of outline the approaches for connecting in and integrating these systems?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a big fan of the RFC connector, but I have been around for 30 years in the ABAP world. So then RFC was big, but you can build apps really quickly using an RFC connector because there's so many remote enabled functions in the system. So even if you don't allow it productively, just for prototyping purposes, it's great. Just show whether something is possible. Like Ajit said, fail fast or prove it quickly that it can be done. And then you can invest in building the OData services, for instance. So OutSystems support out of the box RFC, OData, and REST and SOAP, basically all the techniques that SAP uses to integrate. And so you can very quickly integrate using these techniques. But what makes it really powerful if you can do it bidirectional. So if SAP can send events for you, again, at Syngenta, we have this event mesh now, that Midwest reseller app. When a delivery changes in SAP or a sales order, we get an event. Or if something in logistics changes, we get an event. We don't have to do massive batch jobs at night or hourly to update our data. We have a very lean integration system that way. And then you have a really powerful real-time system without huge data flows between the two. So, to summarize, basically any technique goes. Authentication is always an issue, I think, but that's a separate and quite technical topic, as well as authorization. But at many clients we've done it. There's also single sign-on options. You can check authorizations as granular as you can in ABAP in such a local platform. I think that integration that's well developed and quite mature.
Great, thanks. And since I've got you, do you have some thoughts to share or your view on, you've been on this journey longer than most of us, bringing it together. How do you see the next couple of years evolving, and what are and even before we get into that piece, just what are the pitfalls that you see people who are starting this journey that are either thinking about it in one way or taking a step that don't get to identify and reap the rewards that we've heard from Ajit and others successful. So maybe two steps. One question, what are your cautions and advice to someone getting started on this journey? And then two is, what's the long-term potential, where you see it going?
I think one of the main pitfalls is underestimating the impact adopting a low-code platform has. You build so fast in a low-code platform. Basically, every customer we start, I always warn them, in 3 weeks, we will be out of work and you'll be still writing user stories. And almost all the time, that's true. They simply can't keep up with us if they keep on working in the old ways. The same as testing. We sort of would like people, because we build so fast, to test continuously. But people have jobs, they have responsibilities. It's very hard to make time for this. So the organization needs to shift as well a bit to lean into low-code and how to adopt it internally to make the most of it. Instead of having teams stopped, waiting for input, waiting for test results. So that's one of the major pitfalls I see. It doesn't mean that you have to change dramatically, but you have to recognize the company itself needs to also put time in it to make it successful. It should be a joint effort to build. As we build Agile and Scrum, you really need to do it like that. I think that's the main pitfall I've seen so far.
Yeah. Got it. And you have a comment or two on kind of where you see this all heading?
Yeah, I think like that Gartner slide, I think there's more and more low code coming in. People are seeing that low code is mature. Like 5-10 years ago, they were nice tools, but now they're full-blown development platforms that can do anything you can do with high coding, which brings it might actually back to another pitfall. You really have to box it in. Where do you use a platform for? You can do everything with a low-code platform, but certain things you don't want to do with a low-code platform, like middleware or business warehouses, these kind of things. So if you have UiPath, you have Power Apps, you have OutSystems, you have BTP, there's so many technologies now you can choose from. You have to really be careful not to make a spaghetti in that sense, that you build everything and everything. But going forward, I think low code, I think, is the future because it's so powerful, and using AI, it gets more powerful by the day. The speed of development is going to increase exponentially.
Great. Thanks. Yeah, Ajit, Roy, anything else to add? I think we're going to start to wrap up. No? Any other questions? Great. Well, there are a couple other questions we didn't quite get to. We'll respond to them offline. But I want to thank you two for joining me and for everyone on the webinar who joined us. This was a great conversation. It's always, for those of us who are in the industries working, we have our views and perspectives. And Ajit, it's always great to have that validated by someone who's on the ground inside a client, actually delivering value day in, day out. We're really thrilled to be working with you at Syngenta and thrilled to be working with others as well. As far as next steps, feel free to reach out to any of us with questions or follow-up, even if just to talk about ideas and thoughts that you might have. We're eager, as Roy mentioned, we're always excited to talk to people and share our experiences, hear what you're up to. Clearly we have that information also on our respective websites. There'll be more events. Roy's hosting a luncheon with a group in Utrecht, the Netherlands tomorrow at a lovely castle, if anybody's around. And otherwise, looking forward to staying in touch and continuing to share the experiences and benefits of low-code platforms, extending SAP, and getting the best out of both of these platforms and technologies. So if no further questions or feedback, I think I'll just say thanks to everybody. And thank you, Roy, and thank you, Ajit. Really great chatting with you.
Welcome.
Sure. Thanks.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you all so much. Thanks for this informative webcast. Have a good one.